Welcome to this week's Race Room. Coming up on today's show, I've got a special co-presenter. We've got all the facts from F1, World Touring Cars, MotoGP. There is so much to get through. Let's get on with the show. Right, so welcome to a very special edition of the Race Room. I've got a co-presenter guest, Mark Priestley, a.k.a. F1 Elvis. Welcome to the sofa. You've already been doing a little bit of work for us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we had a video went up last week, and I just want to say thank you very much to everybody who took time to leave a comment, because we had so many and some great questions. It was really brilliant. I've taken some time this morning to try and answer some of those, and we'll try and do some more as the week goes on, so keep them coming.
Absolutely, make the most of Mark's technical knowledge. I don't have enough of it, so I'm reading all of the comments that he's giving back to you, so get involved and comment below. First things first though, the F1 world has erupted this morning. We thought we had lots of news with Red Bull, and we'll come on to that in a minute, but Ferrari, the biggest announcement, Stefano Domenicali stepping down as team principal for the Italian team. What are your first thoughts?
Yeah, he's fallen on his sword, hasn't he? They've had a very difficult year, and Stefano Domenicali, one of the nicest guys in the Formula One paddock, perhaps a little bit too nice for a job that's quite a cutthroat position, isn't it?
Do you think he's right to take the blame? A lot of people, and a lot of you perhaps thinking that maybe Luca de Montezemolo should be stepping down, but de Montezemolo's role's bigger than the F1, isn't it? He does a lot of other stuff for Ferrari. So is Stefano right to shoulder all the blame?
Well, unfortunately, it's a cutthroat business, isn't it? And yeah, you're right. De Montezemolo, I mean, actually, the Formula One side of what he does is a relatively small proportion. So somebody has to take the blame in these times, unfortunately. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. Like I say, he's done a lot of good for Ferrari over many years, not just in his time as team principal. So we'll have to wait and see. It's
been a tough time for Ferrari, hasn't it? I mean, they've had Red Bull coming in and absolutely dominating. It's a bit like, you know, Mark Webber coming up against Vettel, and you thought he'd do well, and then obviously a teammate takes over. So it's the same, you know, Ferrari trying to deal with the likes of Red Bull. It's been a bad era to be involved in for Domenicali.
Yeah, they've had it tough, haven't they? That's for sure. But you know, this season, it's a results-driven industry, of course. And this season, as you can see here, you know, we're 3 races in, they've got 33 points. That isn't enough for a big team. This isn't what you'd expect, is it? I mean, seeing Force India in second place, I mean, an astounding season for them as a season opener. But yes, I mean, Ferrari, it's just not where they want to be, is it? No, and of course, you know, Ferrari more so than any other team, they've got an immense amount of pressure. You know, it's a national institution. So if they're not, you know, if they're not performing, if they're not doing what the country expects, heads unfortunately will have to roll. And of course, yes, Luca holding his head there in despair. The problem was this season really gave them the opportunity with all the new technical regulations, especially as a manufacturing team with the engine that they provide themselves, obviously. That was their chance to really show off and maybe get some good results, wasn't it? Well, it was. You know, they have the advantage that Mercedes perhaps have. You know, they design a car, a chassis, and they design the engine. So they had the chance, exactly like you say, to integrate the two better than anyone else should have been able to do, and yet they've come up short in probably both areas, if we're honest. So de Montezemolo holding his head there. Last weekend we saw, you know, turning up to Bahrain and then leaving Bahrain before the race had even finished. Yeah, that was significant, I think, wasn't it? It was a dismal day for Ferrari on Sunday in Bahrain, and this was one of his quotes immediately following that Grand Prix that, you know, it says here, we'll take decisions that we need to take. Perhaps today was one of those big decisions. Yes, who would have thought it? I didn't think that that would be one of the decisions. But yeah, a big interesting time for F1. And on the other side of the coin, we've got to think who's taking on the role. And it is this chap, isn't it? So this guy's been announced. His name is Mattiacci, if I've got that pronounced correctly. Mattiacci. And he's a big gun already in the world of Ferrari. Well, he is. He's been in Ferrari's sort of world for many years. I think all of his working career, more or less. But he's never been involved, crucially, in the racing side. So is that a good decision or not? He's a very business orientated individual. Is that what Ferrari need right now? I don't know. He's been turning around a lot of the different departments and different offices around the world for Ferrari. So I suppose they need a bit of a shake-up. They need a turnaround. So he could be the man for the job. But we don't know as yet how long he's going to be there. Well, we don't. I mean, there's no announcement as to how long this, you know, I think it's an ongoing thing. But of course, there's inevitably going to be speculation about any further replacements long term. And, you know, there are a couple of big names in the paddock. There are quite a lot of people floating around with perhaps an interest in a role, such as taking on Maranello. Have their phones been ringing this morning? Let's wait and see. These two. What do you reckon? Are you a betting man? Would you bet on one of these two, or maybe somebody else? My honest gut opinion, really, I don't think either of them will end up in that position. I suspect Ferrari will want to keep it in-house, but it is interesting. You know, these guys, Ross Brawn obviously has history at the team,
absolutely.
very successful history at the team. So you can certainly see an advantage to having him back, but I think the bigger question in that side of the picture there is, would he want to go back? He's enjoying his fishing, I think, right now.
Yes, he does love his fishing, and I suppose the only way is up. So anyone who does take on the role, it's going to only go one way, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Well, yeah.
And this, an interesting tweet from Adam Cooper here, saying that the team principals of the teams that finished 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th last year have all moved on. It's starting to sound a little bit like football. I feel like I'm saying a bad thing there, but yeah, it is so interesting to see that, isn't it?
It is. It's a real interesting fact, yeah. So that leaves just Christian Horner, you know, at the top of that tree, who's still in his role.
And here he is. He's looking a little bit worried in this photo as well, actually.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's obviously done a great job, but, you know, we're in a position now where they're not winning the championship at the moment, Red Bull. You know, they're not sort of struggling like Ferrari are, but they're certainly not living up to the expectations of the past 4 years. So let's wait and see.
And of course, since the season opener in Melbourne, they've had weighing on their shoulders this problem with the fuel flow sensor. Today is the big day. They're in court trying to work out what is going on and whether it was legal, whether it was illegal. What are your thoughts on the situation? Because I haven't spoken to you before about this. What do you feel about it?
No, well, it's a real key. Today's a massive day, and it's been slightly buried underneath this Ferrari news. You know, it's a huge day for Formula One, because what Red Bull are doing here is challenging the FIA's authority to a certain extent. Now, depending which way the decision comes down, you know, that could have a huge impact on the way the sport is governed moving forward. So it's a really interesting thing. They're in court right now as we speak, and there are a few interesting facts that have come out about these fuel sensors, the homologated fuel sensors that all the teams have to run. This is the thing that's under debate. Its accuracy is what's under debate. And there's a few examples that have come out in this evidence that, you know, other teams are having a lot of issues, you know, a number of issues each weekend. It wasn't just in Melbourne. Even up to Bahrain, a lot of teams are still struggling with these things.
Do you think, I mean, it's challenging the authorities. Do you think they're right to do this? Formula One's meant to be about pushing those boundaries, pushing technology and innovation. Red Bull are at the forefront of that, or has been for the last 4 years. Yeah. Do you think they're right to have challenged it? Do you think they should be always trying to challenge and see the best and optimum solution? Or was it really, guys, you know, get back in line, really follow the rule book? Yeah, there's a real two schools of thought here. I mean, Formula One is always, as you say, it's always about pushing those boundaries. And a team like Red Bull have won the championship for the past 4 years because they have pushed those boundaries so often. So I think I completely understand why they're doing it. It's very frustrating from their point of view. They're being forced to use a sensor which they say isn't accurate, and not only is it not accurate, it's actually directly affecting the performance of the car. Absolutely.
So you can completely understand why they're frustrated and you know, think they're in the right.
With Adrian Newey saying today in the court that the second place that Daniel Ricciardo achieved wouldn't have been possible if they hadn't changed the fuel sensor and used their own one.
That's right. Something else that was really interesting that came out this morning was that somebody's suggesting that other teams, because of the sort of inaccuracies of these sensors, other teams are buying them up in bulk almost at £15,000 per sensor to try and find the one that's most beneficial to them. So there clearly is an issue with them, and because it directly impacts the performance so much, it's a real hot topic, a real difficult one for the FIA to decide.
Well, we'll wait with bated breath to find out what happens there, but as you say, it's going to set a precedent, isn't it? If they,
absolutely.
Either way, whichever way it goes. So that is our news with the F1 world, but if we carry on into World Touring Cars. Now, we were having a chat off camera earlier. F1 is your game, isn't it? But you must know about Sebastien Loeb.
Incredible name, I mean, incredible sportsman. You know, I don't follow it greatly, but you cannot do anything but be in awe of everything he's achieved.
He is absolutely phenomenal. He's gone and won the second race in the World Touring Car Championship. Second race of the day yesterday out in Morocco, Marrakech. Just unbelievable from him. He can turn his hand to anything. We saw him doing Pikes Peak, smashing the record there. We've seen his domination in World Rally. I'm absolutely in awe of the guy. He's someone I still get slightly shaky about interviewing, but wow, to see him on the podium already with Citroen, I mean, just amazing. I saw an advert actually over the weekend saying how Citroen have dominated in World Rally, they've dominated in all these different areas, and I thought, well, just add another one to the list because Loeb is continuing their dominance. So yeah, World Touring Cars, a really great race, a couple of races actually, and with a little crash as well. MotoGP out at the Circuit of the Americas, Repsol Honda dominating, and one man in particular, or I like to say boy, actually. Marc Marquez, another win for him. He won his first MotoGP race at the Circuit of Americas last year in his debut year in MotoGP, following it up with a back-to-back win. And this is an awesome selfie, a la Fernando Alonso almost, with his teammate Dani Pedrosa, who finished second, and Andrea Dovizioso finishing in third as well. So a really interesting mixture on the podium, but I think perhaps the die-hard MotoGP fans would say it was a little bit of a boring race, apart from perhaps Lorenzo, who full started and had to pit immediately to have a drive-through. But Marc Marquez just continuing his dominance, even with that broken leg, which I'm sure is nearly healed now. So yeah, very interesting MotoGP, and that's your news. Right, time for What the Camera's Seen. 2 photos this week. The first is this. I thought I'd cause a bit of mischief at the motorway services on our way to Silverstone last week. I asked for my name to be written as Penelope Pitstop, and the guy at Starbucks, I can kind of give it away, we all know the logo, he drew a car. Oh yes, just causing mayhem wherever I go. So that's my first What the Camera's Seen. Second is this. A Stig, perhaps. I want you to guess who this might be. If you were on our Twitter last week, you might have seen who I was tweeting about, but we were doing some exclusive filming with the man in white and Aston Martin. There you go. A couple of clues for you. Why don't you comment below and tell us if you can guess who's in the white suit. But keep an eye on the channel, because that video will be coming soon. And that is What the Camera's Seen. Right, so it's time for tweets of the week. Mark, you're going to help me go through the tweets that we've hand-picked. First one, MotoGP. Marc Marquez is unstoppable, first of all, but his riding style is insane.
It's a great picture, isn't it?
Isn't this amazing? I mean, we've got the back wheel up, we've got his left foot down. It's like he's kind of coasting around the corner, and they do this as they go around the corners, trying to like get a bit of speed off so they can control the bike. But I mean, just sensational. You don't get that in F1.
No, and you think about the speeds that he was probably doing at this point. It really is incredible.
Carpet burn. You imagine the bottom of the shoes. I mean, his knee slider and elbow slider get a lot of the action, but the underside of his foot. So we've spoken a bit earlier in the race room about this huge announcement today in Maranello with Ferrari. I love this though, from GT Hitchens, and at Richard F1 retweeted it, talking about picking a winner. Isn't this unfortunate?
There's always going to be, when you're in a position like this, there's always going to be an unfortunate picture for times exactly like today.
Absolutely. I mean, the photographers just have a field day. You can just walk around the paddock, and poor guys, I mean, yeah, always on camera or always being papped or snapped. Yeah, not great. I think Stefano will be wishing this one hadn't surfaced, especially now. Let's hope that doesn't make front headlines today on the papers. And lastly, our last tweet, another one from WTF1. A little bit of an old story, but he's obviously been working hard on this graphic. This is great.
It is brilliant. It refers, of course, to the big shunt in Bahrain that Pastor Maldonado caused last Sunday. And yeah, it's nicely done by WTF.
Very nice. Yeah, so a word of warning to everybody in F1, and actually anyone who probably drives near where Maldonado might be going out for a Sunday drive. So yes, that's your tweets. Thanks very much for going through those with us.
Pleasure.
Right, so you saw that awesome picture warning people to avoid Pastor Maldonado. Mark, you actually made reference to this with that crash in your piece that you did last week. And if you haven't seen it, check it out at the end of the race room. There'll be a link to that. This week we've got Aston Martin, we've got how to build an Aston Martin racing car. We were at Pro Drive, so check that video out. That'll be going up later this week. And then it's the Chinese Grand Prix, and you are going to be doing another video for us. Talk us through it.
Yeah, so very quickly, we're going to do a great video, hopefully, about how Mercedes have stolen the advantage over everybody else that they have. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, definitely. If you want more technical knowledge, just keep an eye out for Mark, because he's got all you need to know. In the meantime, though, happy Easter. Enjoy all the racing this weekend, and we'll see you next week.
The segment that Lotus have got there, that really isn't going to help them. And as engine manufacturers, again, Mercedes.
Hopefully there's more drivers coming in the future, but I hope not too soon.